I think you owe it to yourself to just try the carnivore diet for as many days in a row as you can string together. If you're over fat and under muscled, the current plan that you're on is not working very well. But if people got rid of plants entirely, they would indeed become much healthier and be able to manage their body weight a lot better. How does somebody know what's sustainable for you? Someone's like, that's not sustainable. It's like, well, yeah, not for you, you fat. Welcome to the Power Project and welcome to another Saturday School. We're going to be talking about the carnivore diet today because it's World Carnivore Month and I realize there's going to be a lot of questions about it. So I wanted to take the time to talk about the carnivore diet specifically and then also talk about some branch offs of the carnivore diet, which, by the way, was deemed by Dr. Paul Saladino, if he is a real doctor or not, I don't know. I'm just kidding. Paul's a good friend, but Paul made the statement years ago when I was telling him that I ate meat and fruit. He told me he told me and my brother that we were part of the JV squad. So for whatever that means, that sounds derogatory though. Anyway, let's go over the carnivore diet. There really is only one version of the carnivore diet. What is the carnivore diet? The carnivore diet is a meat-based diet. You're eating just meat. You're excluding all animals. You're excluding all plants. You're getting rid of all plants. You're eating pretty much nothing but animals. I'm trying to think if there's anything else just all animal diet. You're eating red meat. You're eating pork. You're eating fish. Just any type of meat or any type of animal that you can think of, whether it be seafood or whether it's something that flies or whether it's something that runs or something that walks, everything from a cow to a goat and anything in between that is all fair game, quote unquote, no pun intended, of the carnivore diet. Now, there are some purists who get kind of upset and get kind of mad the second that somebody has coffee or tea. Is coffee or tea allowed on the carnivore diet? I think, the word allowed is an interesting word because allowed by who, allowed by whom, and what's your goal? If you have a lot of symptoms and you've had, let's say, chronic pain or chronic skin issues or chronic whatever, and you're just sick and tired of having these issues and you want these issues to dissipate and you want these issues to disappear, then you may want to go full carnivore. You may want to just really follow the protocol of just eating meat and or organs for as long as you can possibly do it for. The next question that pops up a lot is the carnivore diet healthy? It's probably a lot healthier than whatever you're currently doing if you're fat. If you're over fat and under muscled, the current plan that you're on is not working very well. If you can look down and you have a gut, you have a stomach that you're not pumped about, you're not excited about, that maybe wasn't always there, or maybe it has always been there. But if it's expanded over the years and so on, then what you're currently doing is the least of the healthy options. A carnivore style diet, a diet where you get rid of carbohydrates and you get rid of plant foods, can be very, very useful. I have gone as far as to say that if people got rid of plants entirely from their diet, that they would indeed become much healthier and be able to manage their body weight a lot better. Why would I make such a crazy statement? Well, most, if not all of the fake foods, I can't really think of a fake animal food. Maybe someone can write in and be like, hey, the blah, 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 but there's no fake animal food. There's no fake meat type of situation that is hyperpalatable, highly processed. I guess we could maybe beef jerky can be kind of put in there, but beef jerky is still, it's still beef at some point. So again, maybe there is a food, but my point in saying that if we got rid of plants altogether, we would probably be a lot healthier. That would mean the exclusion of all hyperpalatable, highly processed foods, things that come in bags and packages because they're made by plants and they're made with plants and they're adulterated, and we mess with those plants a lot. So I guess we can say that the plants are screwed with, and that's why they are like worse for us. We got to keep in mind too, coffee is a plant, tea is a plant, sugar is a plant. Like there's a lot of things are plants. As I am thinking about it right now, people are probably going to ask questions about, cured meats and bacon and so on. I've eaten those things and still was able to lose weight while on a carnivore diet. We're going to get to dairy in a second. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I was also able to eat cheese and lose weight. Now, the reason why I'm saying lose weight is, again, because losing weight is one of the key things in your journey to be healthier, is to lose weight, is to lose body fat. So if you eat some pepperoni and some salami and some cheese and stuff like that, even if you have some every day, I think that whatever the detrimental impact of eating some of those things, whatever it could be, it's better than being 60 pounds overweight. So we could make an argument, as you get in better shape, you start to maybe get rid of more and more things because your health journey becomes more serious and you get more into it. That's what happened to me. Now I'm like, okay, grass-fed, grass-finished, organic. Let's try to be as hippy-dippy about this stuff as we can be. And let's try to be as mindful and as healthy as we can be. So I want to make that point, is that whatever you're currently doing, the people that are hovering around the carnivore diet, the people that are looking it up and checking out Dr. Sean Baker's stuff, most of those people are probably in a compromised position right now, and it would be a great idea to embark on the carnivore diet. It'd be an awesome idea to give it a good 30 days or so. Ryan, you got a question?
Let's see here. I got lots of questions. Let's see here. I guess a good question maybe to start off with would be, I think there's a lot of people that see like people eating ribeyes, people eating New York steaks, and maybe they feel like they can't afford to eat on this style of diet, especially when ribeyes a lot of times are $20 a pound and up. And, there's a lot of people that may only make $20 an hour or something like that. So what do you recommend for the people that feel like they can't afford it? What's like the budget option for carnivore?
I just want to point out that I'm so old that when you said $20 an hour, my eyes lit up. I'm like, $20 an hour, I'd be rich. When I was a kid, that was a lot of dough to be slanging around. Yeah, there is definitely concern about price. How do we make this more affordable? But something I see that's lacking from American culture nowadays is the inability to be creative with the food inside your home. And maybe it's just a lack of people not wanting to cook or not knowing how to cook. But there's something in your home that can cook your food for you that you don't have to do much with. You just put stuff inside of it and it warms it up and it gets it so hot that eventually over the course of 20 minutes or so, it cooks it up. And it's called an oven. And an oven can be a really great way for you to save a lot of money because you can buy chicken, you can buy turkey. There's lots of stuff that you can buy. You can get a little bit more creative with it, and you can buy, different types of pork and different things like that. You can also use a crock pot, and you can get very inexpensive types of meat. I bought something recently called pork butt, and a pork butt is absolutely amazing, but in a crock pot, it's just like unrivaled. It is so good. You don't need to put anything with it. So you're able to get a good supply of food and you're able to get a good supply of protein. But I want to try to answer the question even more directly than that. Any style of nutrition that you're going to implement where you're going to start to increase the amount of protein that you're consuming is going to increase probably the price tag when you look at most foods that you're purchasing. One of the things about unhealthy food that's great is that it's cheap. It's inexpensive, it's cheap, and it treats your body cheaply. It's a cheap nutrient. There's cheap shit in there. There might be some nutrients, might be some value in there, but there's really not a lot of value in there. It's kind of garbage. So in a lot of ways, you're getting what you pay for when you buy the chips and when you buy the Pringles and you buy, this junk food and that junk food. Something else interesting that happens when you start to switch to not just carnivore, but just a healthier lifestyle in general, you're going to realize there's not a lot of room for snacks. And snacks are probably costing you way more money than you think. Again, I did say that they're cheap. They can be very inexpensive. You can buy a bag of chips sometimes for like $1 or 79 cents or something like that. Probably buy a big ass thing of them at Costco, a big thing of Fritos or something like that. And it probably comes out to be very, very inexpensive. But those foods aren't filling and not giving us the nutrients that we need. So yeah, they're inexpensive. And yes, the meat is going to cost a little bit more. But this idea that you can't afford it, I can't support, because I think anyone that's able to eat a couple meals a day right now will be able to eat a couple meals a day on the carnivore diet. And furthermore, and I know it sounds like a ridiculous proposition, but you are working on losing weight. So maybe you only eat like twice a day. The price of everything, unfortunately, is going up. So I do empathize. I do understand, like even something as simple as eggs, which now the FDA has deemed as like a health food, which it's only taken them a little while to come around on that. But that might even make them more expensive. Before I forget, there was something I forgot to mention when I did talk about the removal of plants. That's a little tongue in cheek. I don't really mean that, because I personally eat plants, and I'll get into exactly how I eat later. But I also want to point out that dairy can be a double-edged sword. Dairy can be very useful. It has a lot of great things to it, but milk is high in sugar and it's high in fat. And most of the time in nature, we don't find things that are high in fat and high in sugar, except for in milk. Nuts and stuff like that, they're lower in carbohydrate. They don't really have sugar. They do have fats. They do have protein. But so milk can be something that can potentially, I don't want to say milk can make someone fat, because I haven't really seen a lot of evidence of that. But I mean, keep in mind, what always makes us fat is always the same thing. It's always an abundance of food, an abundance of energy, and we're not expelling or spending enough energy. There's a lot of nuance to that too, and that's one of the reasons why I don't always love the idea of the calories in, calories out thing. But you can make your body more efficient at being able to utilize the calories that you have when you start to embark on healthier endeavors. And so I think the money that you're going to pay for on the carnivore diet, I would love to see you spend your money there, because you might be spending your money now to make these changes, but these changes could be astronomical for you and your family. I know my friend Russell Buddy, we've had him on the podcast before, and he's talked a lot about how he shops and how he purchases food, and he's very smart with the way that he spends his money, but he knows how to get good deals. Andrew Zaragoza as well. Andrew's somebody that says, hey, you go to Costco and you can go over here, you can ask for bull meat, and the bull meat is like $93.7 or something like that at Costco. And now it's going to be pricey because it's a large amount of meat, but it's fairly inexpensive for what it is. So I'll end on this point in terms of the price tag that you might see with the carnivore diet, is that when you go to a restaurant, like the nicest restaurants in the world are predominantly restaurants that serve meat. So meat is always a commodity. It's always a thing. It's a thing that we love, a thing that we really enjoy. And so it's always going to come with a little bit more of a price tag. But for those of you that are looking for more affordable ways of embarking on a carnivore diet, there's a lot of videos that have been made on YouTube. You can check those out. There are there's Reddit threads. I mean, there's a lot of information to kind of scour the internet to find, and then also just communicating with friends and family. And you'll say, man, I really want to do this diet, but it's super expensive. I just heard some conversation over the holidays of some of my relatives talking about how they get better deals on meat at this place versus that place. So, do some of your homework, and whenever something's on sale, try to get that stuff in your freezer, and you can kind of stock up a bit on that. And also realize that what you're currently able to afford now, hopefully it's not the same forever, and hopefully you can make improvements. Hopefully you can listen to Alex Hormozy. Hopefully you can learn more about business, because I think one of my messages all the time, always and forever, is this idea of self-improvement. can you work on losing a couple pounds a month and within the next year, have knocked off 8 pounds, 10 pounds? I think any reasonable person would say, yeah, I could definitely do that. When it comes to the idea of making money, if you ask someone, hey, do you think you could make more money? They might immediately start to think of some challenges that there might be in making more money. But again, I think if they were reasonable, they would say, yeah, I bet I could probably figure out a way to make more money. So I do realize it does come with a price tag. It does come with an expense, but use that oven, learn how to do it. Check out some cookbooks. My wife is making like meatloaf, and we're throwing chicken thighs and chicken breast and full chicken and turkey and pork and this and that. We're just throwing all kinds of stuff in the oven. And if the oven's a little intimidating, just get a smaller oven. Just get the Ninja, get a Ninja Foodie. Those things are a godsend. And did you know that you can throw just straight up, flat out, completely frozen as a brick steaks in your Ninja Foodie, and it will pop out of there and it will be absolutely incredible. So hopefully that helps with some options. I'm also a fan of canned fish, which those aren't always inexpensive, but some of the types of fish are going to be less expensive. There's even canned chicken. And you might be thinking, man, some of this food sounds kind of gross, but just spice it up whatever way that you need to. I'll just address this briefly. On the carnivore diet, are these condiments, are they okay? What about ketchup, and what about mayonnaise, and what about dressings? The answer, in short, is no, they're not okay. And they never were okay, and they never really will be okay. However, do the best you can with them to season your food appropriately so that you have something that's palatable. Let's not be ridiculous about it. I would say that mustard is a pretty good choice because it's usually not accompanied by a lot of other things. Honey mustard is going to have obviously more sugar in it and stuff like that. As far as mayo goes, I would try to find a mayo that doesn't have seed oils in it. But again, if you start to turn some of this stuff into a little bit of a hobby, you can circumvent all of these problems, and you'll see every fitness influencer saying, I don't use mayo anymore, I use cottage cheese. But there are, just try some of these ideas out. Some of them are going to be gross. Some of them aren't going to work, but some of them will. And when they do work, then you're going to find better, more affordable ways to cooking delicious meals. I want to address, before I grab some more questions from you, Ryan, I want to address this idea of fiber. And we're going to get to the blowouts in a minute too, because I know that that's a big question on everybody's mind about disaster pants. But when it comes to fiber, first of all, is controversial. And I know there's some people listening are like, no, it's not controversial. You need fiber. The word need is an interesting word. And I guess in general, if I had to pick a lane, I would say that I agree that at some point we probably do need some fibrous foods. I'm not a big fan of hey, let's eat a bunch of broccoli to get our fiber. However, I do think some prebiotic fibers and some soluble and insoluble fibers, I think they can be useful. I think here's some things that they do demonstrate. Very clearly. They very clearly demonstrate some of the following things. They can help fill you up. So we know that, leafy greens, and we know some of these things, they can assist in giving us more volume without the caloric load. I mean, that sounds, if that's not a superfood, health food, that sounds kind of great in some ways. Okay, it doesn't yield a ton of energy, and okay, we can't sequester the same amount of nutrients as we could if it was beef or if it was some type of meat, because meat is more bioavailable. At least that's my understanding to this point. But fiber can be very useful in a lot of ways. So if you put a gun to my head and said, hey, do we need fiber? I would say, I think it's a good idea to have some fiber. However, we have to understand that most of the studies that have been made are done on normies. They're done on normal people that eat normal, stupid stuff. And what's normal nowadays is very abnormal to the human diet. And it's very insulting to the metabolism. That is something that you need to keep at the front of your mind all the time, always and forever when you get information from other people, because they do not know what they're talking about. So when someone says fiber is good because it helps fight colon cancer, or it helps with this, or helps heart disease and so on, the study and the information that we have is on people that are eating like a standard American diet. So I would say, hey, that's great that you have a cleanup crew that comes in and kind of scrapes some of that junk that you're eating, and it helps scrape it out of your body and transport it potentially into the toilet, which I know fiber has other uses than just that. That makes a lot of sense if you have a bullshit diet. If you're a bullshit person with a bullshit diet, then you're excreting bullshit all day long, right? Because you're eating these fibrous foods. Sounds reasonable to me. But however, if you're eating more nutritious foods, I don't know how much of that cleaning crew that you really need. I will say that I do think there's something to prebiotic fibers. We haven't quite figured it all out yet. But when it comes to onions, and when it comes to some fermented vegetables and kimchi and prebiotic, probiotic, I know there's a lot of controversy over probiotics, but prebiotic, probiotic, there's something's going on there, right? Like we know that there's something going on there, and we've been kicking this can down the road for a while with it. But I do think that they can be important. Now, if you're trying to be strict on the carnivore diet, and again, you have ailments, you have symptoms, you feel like crap every day, you have rashes, you have just stuff that's like unexplainable that you hate, that you can no longer stand. Your back hurts a lot, your knee hurts a lot. All these things, I think you owe it to yourself to just try the carnivore diet for as many days in a row as you can string together. And you're going to find that 3 days or 5 days of pure carnivore can be extremely difficult. So I would just say give it a try and give it a shot and see what some of the results are. What I've personally found is that it doesn't really seem to matter that much if I have some other influences of food coming in. And I'll just save all that for the end, because I don't want to confuse people with my way versus like what the carnivore diet is. Again, to reiterate, the carnivore diet is absent of all plants. So, hey, what about this? What about that? No, it's not part of the plan. Hey, well, what about honey? No, it's not meat. I mean, we could try to turn everything into meat, and we could try to make it into we could say that it's part of the plan, but it's really not. I guess maybe the only exclusion I can think of is, we got eggs, of course. The only other exclusion I can think of is just like salt, so there are some of the, remember I did say about seasonings and stuff like that. I would say that you're better off with like powdered seasonings, like rubs and, garlic and salt. And the more natural things are, the better. Oregano, these are just natural herbs, spices. That's what I was looking for. Spices and herbs, those can definitely be beneficial. Always check the ingredient label to make sure it doesn't have any crap in it that you don't agree with or don't like. But those options are great, and those are the things that are going to help flavor your food. I use a product, I'll just give a plug to Hardcore Carnivore by Jess Prylis. She did a great job of making an awesome group of seasonings. However, you might not like the ingredients that she has. She sometimes will use sugar, sometimes will use some other things. And again, is it uncarnivore of you to eat these herbs? Yes, it is. You're not actually 100% compliant with the diet. As soon as you use garlic and as soon as you use minced onions or whatever it is that you're going to use, you are modifying the diet a little bit. But I'm here to tell you that that's okay. So let's say that you want to just do it because you want to just see what it's like, and you want to lose a little bit of weight, and you're not sick. You don't believe that you have arthritis, or you don't believe that you have some autoimmune disease. Well, then that's when we can have a little bit more fun with it. That's when I would say, yes, let's keep in some of these things, and let's make this thing palatable. That's one of the things. That's one of the selling points of the carnivore diet. I think most dudes are like, oh my God, I love meat. This sounds great. I can eat wings. I can eat steak. I can eat ground beef. I can eat eggs. Holy crap, that sounds awesome. And so I think that's a huge part of the attraction to the carnivore diet and one of the reasons why it can work so well. But this idea that we need a ton of fiber in our diet, I think is exaggerated. I think the recommended daily dosage of fiber is like 20 grams or something like that. I don't know, Ryan, maybe you can punch it up and try to look it up a little bit, but I want to say it's like 20 or 30 grams. And I would say for myself that if I got 20 or 30 grams of fiber in a day, I think it would be like a PR for me. I don't think I've ever in my entire life have ever eaten that much. I don't have any problems with using the bathroom or any of those things. As Ryan's checking some of that out, I am going to move to our next category, and that's calories. Calories are a way to interpret just how much food we're eating. You know, how much are we consuming? And some people like to look at calories burned. Some people like to look at the calories that are coming in. And some people say, hey, you know what? Counting calories is useless. There's no point in it. So I have particular beliefs and I have a particular stance on calories. My stance is that counting calories is kind of stupid and a waste of time. However, I can't let my feelings get in the way of the facts. If you're trying to manage your body weight, for some people, a great way to do so is to check the calories. One thing I will say about calories that doesn't make any sense to me though, if you're eating perfectly, I'm not a fan of tracking that. Like that just seems like overkill. Like if you're eating chicken and you're eating steak and you're having eggs and stuff like that, and you're doing so several times a day, I don't really see a lot of reasons to really pay much attention to what the hell any of that is. However, if you're going to eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's, that's when I would get out your pen and your calculator or utilize your favorite app to track your calories, because to me, that would be more important to track some of that. How much of that did I eat this week? How many things did I eat that are even just slightly off plan this not just on this day, but in the course of this week? It's like, oh, look, I had a legendary tasty pastry. Oh, I had a Quest bar. Oh, I had a Chalk Zero, chocolate bar, right? You start to look at that and you go, wow, over the course of 7 days, I ate 8 or 9 different things that aren't actually truly on my plan. And they actually are fairly calorically dense. That's where you would be going wrong. Or, that's like more like something that I might do. But more normal person might be going off the diet even further than that. Like I mentioned, I guess fake health foods. I mentioned some things that are loaded with protein and not super calorically dense, but those things can still derail you, especially because they can kind of change your taste buds. The carnivore diet is a calm diet. It's a calm diet of you're lowering down the food noise. Your blips of flavor, they're only going to go so high. And that might be when you have a ribeye. And then you have bone broth and it simmers back down and so on. But it has like a bandwidth. If I was to describe it, you have on the carnivore diet, you have a flavor bandwidth that's probably something that's about here. Standard American diet, you have a flavor bandwidth that's probably, the size of this room. It's like immeasurable because you're, having a Coke Zero and then you're eating like French fries and then you're having a Gatorade and then you're eating a cheeseburger and then you're having a grilled cheese. I mean, you're kind of eating whatever the hell you want, and your flavor is spiking. And we hear it so much talking about insulin spike. Hey, you want some real simple diet advice? I'll give you the most simple diet advice you'll ever get in your entire life. Don't spike your taste buds. Just keep them like more flat all the time. If you did, you know what that would tell us? That would tell us that you're eating savory food. And I guess you can probably find a lot of savory foods that are going to make you fat. Okay, I get it. But you know what I'm saying here. You see my point? If we just don't spike our taste buds and spike our flavor and our dopamine and get ourselves all fired up with the ice cream truck type of thing, then we get to keep our frequency and our noise kind of in a box. And when you keep it in a box, it's a lot easier to adhere to the diet and stay on the diet, because I'm telling you, you guys know what I'm talking about. Someone says, hey man, I got an extra donut. You want it? And it's like lunchtime and you're pretty hungry and you're at work, but you made a decision. You're actually going to fast until 2, but they're throwing this at you at 12. And you're like, well, I lifted yesterday and I have been fasting pretty long. Screw it. Right? And then you eat it. Things would be cool if it ended at that donut, or things would be cool if it ended with like you just having half a donut or something like that. But we know that's not where it ends. That's going to spike the taste buds. That's going to spike your appetite. That may spike your insulin. I know people make a huge deal about that. Your insulin's supposed to get spiked when you eat a lot of carbohydrates. It's a normal reaction. Your body should possess that capacity and ability to do that. However, doing it a lot can kind of give our body a roller coaster ride that makes it difficult to calm yourself down. And one of the hugest things with a diet and with your nutrition is that you go through it in a calm way. I've said this many times before. One of the greatest compliments that I ever get from people, they'll say, oh, I tried some of your recommendations. And they're like, and it wasn't really that hard and I lost 20 pounds. I always love that part when they say that it wasn't that hard, that it felt like calm. It didn't feel like it was some crazy invasive project for them to be able to lose some of the weight. You find out any facts on fiber over there, Ryan?
Yeah, so the fiber recommendations are 25 to 30 grams. So 30 grams for men, 25 grams for women.
That reminds me of that old SNL skit, Super Colon Blow. You ever see that commercial?
I have not.
They had colon blow, and they showed the guy like stacked up on the bowls of cereal. And I think they took that from like another famous cereal commercial, and the guy's feet are like dangling, and they're talking about how much fiber's in it and how much it'll help you go to the bathroom and everything. And, people are eating it and they're all happy. And then the announcer, like over the voiceover, is like, and now we make Super Colon Blow. And like, everyone's all happy. So people, our society is obsessed with pooping, and we're obsessed with fiber. Whoever kind of planted that seed in us that fiber is like, I think people literally think that you need fiber to poop. That's interesting, right? Like, I guess if I wasn't in the fitness space, I would probably just think that too. I'd probably be like, that's what I've been told. All right, let's, so in terms of calories, I want to kind of finish some of this thought on calories. Do you need to count calories on a carnivore diet? I would say that you don't really need to count calories ever, if you don't want to. But if you do want to, and you want to be meticulous and you want to stay on top of it, because sometimes gamifying stuff and making yourself super busy within that endeavor turns it into a hobby. And if tracking your macros on Jeff Nippard's app or something like that, gets you excited, and then you're using the app for lifting and stuff too, and you're dialed in. You're like, you have everything kind of accounted for. Like, if you're a spreadsheet type of person, if you're that kind of dude, then I think, go for it. And I don't have any issue with counting calories. I think it can be effective. One of the things I don't love about it, though, is sometimes people are sort of blindly counting and tracking their calories. So I would like for you, if you're going to track your calories, to really watch how your body's responding to the food that you're consuming, and really pay attention to it and see if you can keep diligent record of, I ate at 2 p.m. and I had a New York strip, and then I went for a run at 5:30 p.m. Keep track of like just the little stuff, the little nuances of how that made you feel. Also keep track of, if you find yourself, you find yourself on a good streak of like losing some weight, figure out what that is. I was texting my buddy Mike O'Tren the other day, and he just wrote back to me and he said, whatever's going on with you right now, you're in the zone. And so if you find yourself in the zone and you're doing really well, I think you need to record that more so than just record your food. And recording your food could be something that helps you to keep record of exactly what in the hell is going on. Because I think all of you would know, my buddy Russell, he calls this a whoosh. sometimes you just get a whoosh, like every once in a while, your body just is relaxed, your body's calm, your body feels good, and your body says, we don't need this extra weight on us. And whoosh, 4 or 5 pounds is off sometimes.
You're trying to get healthier and you're probably eating chicken for every meal or the same beef cuts for every meal. And trust me, I know how good some cuts can be. You can make anything taste good. But Good Life Protein is the place that you want to go if you want to start adding some different types of meats into your rotation. They got picanha, they got chorizo sausage, which is still great on the macros because they're using Piedmontese beef. They have lobster. They have all different types of fish. They have actually a bunch of different types of chicken too. They have lamb. I'm telling you, if you give it Good Life a shot and try some of their different meats, which are still great on the macros, you'll start to appreciate the things that you can get from different meat. Don't think too hard about that one. But check out Good Life because we're sure that you're going to love the taste and the quality. And it's good for your health. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at goodlifeproteins.com, and at checkout, enter promo code POWER to save 20% off your entire order. Or if you want to save even more, use promo code POWERPROJECT to save an additional 5% off your build box. Again, goodlifeproteins.com. Link is in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
You're like, that's super odd. But sometimes it happens in the opposite direction. So if you're going to be counting your calories and tracking and stuff, excuse me, I would just love to know that you are kind of paying attention to all of it in other ways. I also think that if you're just being super diligent and you're really counting your calories and you're way on top of it, I think maybe you're missing the point of trying something like a carnivore diet or trying the idea of utilizing protein to really just destroy your hunger. Because we're trying to, you wake up first thing in the morning and you do your normal thing and it's, 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. And if you're hungry and you slam down a couple eggs and some steak, you should be good to go for a pretty long time. And that's the difference with the carnivore diet versus waking up and having a bagel or having a couple pancakes or something like that. You'll find yourself sometimes after those meals, you're tremendously hungry. And there's something called protein leveraging that I've talked about at length many times on many different podcasts. Even went to the lengths of going to Seattle to visit the godfather of the whole thing, Ted Naiman, who's done tons of research on what protein can do for us. Protein can really help to satiate us. And there's a lot of research and a lot of evidence of that. Obviously, the other foods do too. There's things like potatoes and there's carbohydrates that can fill you up and that are super dense sometimes as well. But we mainly see it from protein. And so your body's kind of in search of this protein all the time. And when we consume a lot of protein, it should over time help to drive down your overall calories. All the way to the point where I've seen people have done studies on hundreds of thousands of people via some of these tracking devices. I think it was done on MyFitnessPal. And we'll try to provide some of that information in the show notes. But on MyFitnessPal, they took information, they took data from like 100,000 people or something like that. And what it showed was this curve of calories going downward. The calories that the people were consuming trended downward with the more protein that they ate. And the more protein that they ate, the more it went down. The more they ate more protein and more protein and more protein, and the calories just kept getting stuffed down. Now you will get to a certain point I need to mention, this was a percentage of protein. So that's important to point out. It's a percentage of your protein. So if you start getting your diet into a category of 30, 40%, and maybe even around 50% of your calories are coming from protein, you should be very comfortable. You start getting over 50 or even 50 for too long, and it just doesn't feel great anymore because now your fat calories and your carb calories are just not enough for you to really feel great. But one of the big reasons why I'm such a huge proponent of carnivore style diet and a keto diet is that we do have a lot of need for immediate need for protein and fats. And our need for carbohydrates is a little bit more meh in terms of dietary carbohydrates. Remember, the body, likes carbohydrates so much that it will just make some of its own in the form of glucose. And it's a lot of times I think it's utilizing amino acids for some of that process. There's debate on whether we should avoid that and just occasionally carb up a little bit so we don't have to worry about, gluconeogenesis. But anyway, when you go on a carnivore diet, one of the great things about it is that you don't have to count calories. So if you really wanted to count the calories and you thought that was going to add a little extra zip to the diet plan that you're doing, then I'd say go for it. But again, keep in mind these meats and things like that are going to not only keep you satiated, but keep you satisfied for a really long time. And that's another key point about food is we can talk all this science stuff all we want, but you need to really enjoy the food. So if you're considering the carnivore diet, but you're like, I don't even really like meat that much, well, then I would just say right off the bat, like, I don't even really know if there's a reason to try it. If you don't like meat and you're like, oh, I'm just going to eat sardines every day, like it's not bad to try it. Amen. Go ahead and go for it. But I would say like you want something that you can do that's going to be easier for you to do more long-term. And on that same note, let's kind of get into this idea of sustainability. How sustainable is the carnivore diet? Well, the first time I heard Dr. Baker talk about it and the first time my brother encouraged me to do it was probably, and this is modern day carnivore, probably about 5 years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago now. A couple years back. And I did it. I joined in on World Carnivore Month. And I remember being on like week 2 and I was like, this kind of just blows. This kind of sucks. I don't really like this. So I went off of it. Then I got back on it. I kind of messed with it a bunch of different times, a bunch of different ways. But keep in mind, I have a keto background. And also keep in mind, my brother Chris moved from New York to go to USC Film School to pursue film and documentary filmmaking and all that stuff. And while he was powerlifting at Gold's Gym, one of his lifting partners was a guy named Michael Tren. His name was Michael Tren even back then. And a guy named Ron Fedko. And Ron Fedko was a PhD in mathematics and just very, very smart, knew crazy amounts about training and knew crazy amounts of stuff about diet. I want to say that I saw Ron bench 225 for 56 reps. I've also remember that, when he competed in powerlifting, this guy weighed, around 220 or so. I think he competed at 198 pounds. He deadlifted mid sevens. I think he squatted mid sevens and he would bench like 560 something, like just in a t-shirt. So if I'm remembering, some of that correctly. So this guy was a monster. This guy knew how to train. He knew a lot of stuff. And, that was the first place where my brother and I ever heard about a carnivore diet. It's just that he didn't call it a carnivore diet. He just called it meat and water. And I was prepping for a powerlifting competition on the East Coast. And I didn't know what to do because I was a kid. I was like probably 15 or something. And I think I was trying to make the 220 pound weight class. I think a few weeks before I weighed like 230 or something. I probably shouldn't have been losing weight, by the way. If you're new to powerlifting, worry about the weight on the platform and not what you weigh on the scale. Anyway, I was just making a rookie mistake trying to dive down and lose weight. I talked to my brother on the phone and I was telling my brother what I was eating. I was like, yeah, I'm losing weight. It's working pretty good. I'm just not eating any fat. And he was like, what? And I was eating like cereal and like, I used to have this like kind of giant dog bowl thing of cereal. And my mom, I think, got me some like skim milk. So I just kept like eating that. And I think maybe like midday I'd have like some turkey, like lunch meat turkey, not regular turkey. I'd eat like a half a pound of that. And then I think, for dinner, I was trying to just eat mainly either carbohydrates with no fat or like a chicken breast or something like that. I was just really trying to avoid fat. And I was losing weight. But my brother's like, no, man. He's like, you're going to lose all your strength, by the time the contest comes around. He's like, you need to try this instead. And he told me about meat and water. And he basically just said, and if you feel like crap, he's like, you can, eat an orange or eat an apple or something like that. And so I was like, cool. And so, talk about, trying to do things on the cheap. My mom was like, you're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. And I was like, well, let me go to the store and let me see, and so we'd just buy big old things of, 80-20 ground beef and just find the ones that were on sale and stuff like that. And that's where I started. And that was like 1996 or 95, maybe even earlier, whatever the hell age I was and whatever the heck year it was. It was the mid 90s. I know that. And, so my brother and I have danced around this idea of carnivore and keto for a really long time. As we got older, I got way into keto for many years. So did he. We got into like pricking the finger and checking the ketones, and it's still stuff that I actually practice today because I tend to always go back to the ketogenic diet because it just works great for me. I feel awesome on it. I think I've adapted to being able to burn the fat very efficiently and easily. And so it just doesn't feel like I need carbs. I went all through Thanksgiving, I went all through Christmas. And this year was the easiest year that I've ever had when it comes to going through those time periods around family, eating cookie and different things, that I just had zero issue with it. I had a friend ask me, he's like, how do you eat when you travel? I said, I eat the same way all the time. I just live by the code. I eat meat, I eat fat and protein, and that's pretty much it. I would say that I'm not against going off plan. I'm not against having a cheat meal or something like that. I just haven't had one in quite some time. But he asked me if it was hard. I said it's as hard as traveling and walking, walking on the streets and going through the airports. It's as hard as not getting a fight with somebody. It doesn't feel like it's difficult. It's not want to just, every once in a while punch someone in the face, but you kind of get my point. It's I just have gotten so used to this, and I think that a lot of you can too. Your worst days are going to be relatively good and relatively clean when you learn how to eat like this, when you learn when you're eating primarily protein and fat. So carbohydrates, I think maybe it's a little overblown that they're not that we don't need them. I think some people take that to an extreme and talk about it in extreme ways. Even though I don't deliberately eat a lot of carbohydrates, I do think that they have a lot of value. And I think in certain instances, in certain cases, they can be great, and they could be utilized as a supplement. They could be utilized as a weapon kind of in your back pocket. And they can also be utilized for people that want to gain weight, because not everybody is on this train to be so skinny and so thin. There's a culture that still exists today, the Inuit, and they're Eskimos, and they primarily survive off of fat. They're eating tremendous amounts of fat. I think, I don't know if they still eat the same way, but they used to eat a lot of blubber, a lot of whale, and it was tremendously dense in fat. And this culture, they basically, from my understanding, is many of the people within that culture, I don't know if it's the same now, but years ago, I don't think they ate fiber at all. So that's the way they grew up that way. They just ate that way their whole life. And okay, it is one subset of people, and I'm not really saying for you to not eat any fiber, but it does show that here's a very highly functional group of people that lived well and so on, and they didn't eat any fiber. Now, you could also kind of, look at that under a magnifying glass and say, hey, I think they only lived to this amount of many years or whatever. I don't really know what the circumstances are with their lifespan and so on, but that just is an interesting thing, that an entire population of people just didn't eat any carbohydrates. So again, is it sustainable? I think it's as sustainable as you want to make it to be. The sustainability is going to be highly impacted by your ability to not be disciplined, but probably your ability to, probably more so than anything, be creative, but also give yourself a little bit of a leash. I kind of get saddened when I hear someone say they're like, oh man, I was going to do this for my workout today, and I didn't get to it. And I kind of feel like shit about it. I always think like if you get a chance to work out, that's just a huge blessing. And that if I don't get an opportunity to work out for the day, for whatever reason, then I don't ever look at it as any loss. I look at it as actually being kind of productive. So I think, you know, if you're going to be on the carnivore diet and you go off of it, you have a beer or you have a glass of wine or something, I don't think there's any real reason to kind of hang yourself at that point. I don't think there's any reason to slash the rest of your tires. You know, my buddy Jordan Syatt said years ago, he's like, man, sometimes with some people, it's almost like they go out to their car and they see that one of the tires is slit and there's no more air in it. And so they just take a knife and they just jab the rest of their tires. And that's what happens a lot of times with our diet. You go slightly off of it and then you're off plan or on plan. And I don't like that. That terminology. My thought is you should always be on plan. Even if you're not sticking to the exact game plan that you had for that particular game or that particular day, you're still going to work your way to getting back to it. You know, if you think about it like a football game, you watch a team play and they couldn't stick to their game plan because they get their asses kicked. Well, the next week, it's not like they throw out all plans, right? It's not like they don't plan at all. So they planned to play this one team and they got destroyed. They lost like 50-0 or something, right? The next week they come back and they're not like, hey, remember that time that we made a bunch of plans and it didn't work? Let's make sure that from now on, we just don't have any plans ever. They don't do that. They actually research, they'll watch the tape and they'll find out where they made their errors. And they'll even come back. A lot of times this happens a ton in football because every NFL team plays other teams twice in a season. And you'll see it's like 50-0 one way, and then sometimes it's 50-0 the other way. You're like, how the hell did that happen? Well, because they studied and researched and they found out where they kind of were messing up, where they were making their mistakes. And for yourself, you can start to research that a little bit too. And you won't take a lot of research to find out that you went on a slump of eating around the time your girlfriend broke up with you, or you went on a slump with your eating as soon as you were no longer able to go outside as much because it just got super cold outside. Now you're inside all the time and you're kind of left with your own thoughts and you're streaming and you just have more downtime period. And so now you're having these struggles. But now what that means is we make more plans. It doesn't mean we make less. So that's the way I like to look at these things and to keep things sustainable, that's going to be critical that you're always making a plan. As it stands now, it's like the end of December. The new year hasn't hit quite yet, but it's about to hit. And whenever something's about to come up, don't pretend like you don't know that it's going to happen. You know, your wife's birthday, your best friend's birthday, whether it be Christmas or Father's Day or Mother's Day, like all these things are on the schedule. We know when they're happening. And so these are all things that you should make plans for. And if you make plans for them appropriately for yourself, you should be able to make the diet super sustainable for a really long period of time. All the way to the point where I think that you can be navigating this carnivore and keto the way that I'm doing it, which is like in perpetuity. I plan to be doing it forever. I mean, that's why, you know, even on my Instagram a while back, I put meat-based on there, probably as of like 2 years ago, because some people are like, you're not carnivore or this or that because I eat some other things. I'm like, fine, but I am meat-based and a lot of times I'm doing a ketogenic style diet. So it can be sustainable. Don't believe people. You know, people are going to tell you like, how does somebody know? How does somebody know what's sustainable for you? Maybe you want to go and, walk every day and get 10,000 steps in. Someone's like, that's not sustainable. It's like, well, yeah, not for you, you fat fuck, right? Let's move on to, you have any questions there, Ryan, that are kind of brewing up about any of the stuff I'm saying?
Nothing that's related to that, but I do have other questions.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah. So how much do you think somebody should be worried about fat calories? Because I know we did a single digit body fat series and you were mentioning fat. Do you think that's important for the person that's starting the carnivore diet, or do you think that they should just not really worry too much about that at all.
This is an unfortunate thing about starting a diet. I think that the first 2 weeks, you shouldn't give an F about anything. I think you should just go for it. Like, eat a lot. Intentionally eat a lot. I'm not saying like, go way out of your way to overeat and to like, and get yourself real heavy. But because the plan is new, I want you to get used to the foods. Get used to the foods, get used to reading the food labels, get used to paying attention to what the hell's going on, the types of foods that you're eating. A lot of these things are going to be not really new, but the fact that you're even cooking at home could be kind of a new thing. And so we don't want too many stresses to build up. We want to try to keep this casual. So we don't want to necessarily just jump right into like weight loss. Let's jump into making the body feel good. Let's get nutritious foods in there, and let's kind of get our body used to what we're about to embark on. And then I would say after that period, though, if somebody, let's say even somebody's doing carnivore right now and they're like, I haven't really noticed a huge difference, I'm not really losing a lot of weight, that's when you would want to look at the fat grams. Where are those fats at, and can you afford to lower them quite a bit? In the single digit body fat series, I remember talking specifically about like numbers. And I think for most people, if they could get their fat calories under 50 grams, you're going to be losing weight considerably. Now, if you do under 50 grams for too many days in a row, probably not going to feel great. So you might want to do, 50 grams or under for maybe 2-3 days at a time, and then just bring the fat calories back up. So maybe there's a couple days a week. Maybe you just say, hey, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm just going to keep those fats low, or whatever days work for you in terms of making that a little bit easier. Another thing you could do is you could have some days where you fast here and there. So you can employ a 24-hour fast. A 24-hour fast would ensure that you're not eating any fat. So that would be another way to just chop out some fat. And if you think about it, if you did one 24-hour fast every single week, you end up with like four fasts. And now we're talking about like a pretty good amount of energy that you just cut out. I know some people are worried about like muscle mass and different things, especially on a carnivore diet, especially if you're fasting. But if you're not eating just for a day, you should be fine as long as you're still sending your body signals to keep that muscle mass on. You're still strength training and you're still eating protein when it is time to eat. I think that you would be able to do just fine with that. So main recommendation in terms of like, I'm on the carnivore diet or I'd like to try it, I really want to make sure I'm going to lose weight while on the carnivore diet. I would say that, as I mentioned earlier, like I do like for people to take about 2 weeks. And I know people don't like to listen to that advice, but take about 2 weeks just to eat and just to get used to the diet. After those 2 weeks subside, that's when you want to start to look at the fat grams, or percentage, or however you want to look at it. But the fat grams, I would say it can be difficult for people to lose body fat when they're eating like 200 grams or more. That's not like some sort of blanket number. That's not like that number doesn't really mean anything. It's just a number that I've noticed personally for myself and for other people. So you definitely want to creep down closer to 100. And if possible, maybe have a couple days a week where you are lowering the fats a little bit lower. But with the experience I have with doing this diet for so long, literally, I started messing around with a lot of this in high school. I remember meat and water. It was even earlier than that, but like messing around with the ketogenic diet and messing around with Body Opus from Dan Duchaine. I would eat a lot of ground beef, and I would eat a lot of cheese. Now, cheese is like, it's dairy is always just like in this weird category. I would say that bodybuilders and bodybuilding coaches, they hate cheese. You very rarely see cheese or any dairy. You very rarely see any dairy in anyone's bodybuilding especially when they're trying to get on stage. There's actually a belief by some of the best coaches that dairy kind of quote unquote thickens the skin. That's a really interesting and weird thing to say. What the heck does that mean? Well, and if you're not a bodybuilder, like who cares, right? Who cares if your skin's a little bit thicker on some days than others? Maybe that's not a major concern. I would say that let's just try to keep it simple. If you can tolerate dairy, then let's have it in there, because dairy can be a huge advantage for a lot of reasons. Number one, dairy can take your 93.7 ground beef and make it amazing. So 93.7 is like borderline usually for how good your ground beef's going to taste. Usually the 85.15 is like tastes the best because it has the fat in there, right? But you could throw some cheese on there, and cheese is like a 1-to-1 ratio of protein to fat. And that's going to now give you some different type of flavor, different taste. And it's going to allow you to eat more food, which in some cases we want, because we want to eat a lot of protein. So cheese and stuff like that can really be helpful. One of my favorite dishes on a carnivore style diet, and this is why I switched my Instagram years ago to say meat-based, because people get mad about stuff like this, but I would take lean ground beef, 93.7, I'd throw cheese on there, and I would throw like marinara sauce on there. And that would be like an Italian thing. And I'd have use Italian seasonings, and the flavor, like I just even think about it right now, I'm in the middle of a freaking dry fast. So that sounds just amazing right now. I'll have to make it when I'm done with my 48 hours of fasting. But that having food like that makes the diet so much easier. It makes it so simple. And so if you're going to sprinkle some dairy in there, and it's going to allow you and assist you to live on the diet another day, then that's exactly what we want. So we could nitpick dairy and say, I don't need the extra calories, and you don't need the extra this or extra that. But what if it keeps you on plan 300 days out of the 365 days that we have in the course of the year, and you have a couple of days, there's 52 weeks in a year, so 65 days of like messing up a little bit on your diet. It's actually really good accuracy. That's great. I'd say amen to that. I'd say you're on your way to being healthy. But let's say that without the cheese, you're only able to get in 250 days. Kind of see my point here? It's like, man, brother, give yourself a break here and there on some food choices so that you don't go nuts. And you have to be reasonable with that though too, because you can't be like just shoveling down any old food that you want all the time. But anyway, I think dairy is important. I think it can be really vital for a lot of reasons. Obviously it has like calcium, and there's other things in there that are great that dairy has. I personally like kefir as well. I like yogurt. I like cottage cheese. Now sometimes, I really enjoy, grass-fed, grass-finished. I like raw milk. I like raw, heavy cream. Like I love all this stuff. But I do think there's cool advantages with some of the modern advances of some of these very low fat to no fat yogurts and stuff that are out there. And I think that like if I was to eat, I don't even know like an amount, but say like a half pound of yogurt or something like that, or a quarter pound of yogurt, a couple cups of yogurt mixed with some of the, this is the whey vanilla protein from my company Within You brand. If I mix that up, man, that is so good. And that's not like a full meal for me. That's like a half meal. And that's very filling, very satisfying. It tastes amazing. Sometimes I'll throw cottage cheese in there too to make it a little creamier and to give it like a little bit different substance. But man, that is such a great meal, hyper palatable, amazing in terms of its macros. And I think that that's a huge advantage. So talk about protein leveraging. I mean, that little sucker, that thing can be a bomb, because 000 yogurt has 0 grams of fat, and it has like 17 protein. So if I throw another scoop of protein in there, I have 2 servings of that. It's like, I don't know, it starts to be like 50 or 60 grams of protein, which is absolutely incredible with no fat. So one of the goals, in my opinion, of some of these diets and some of what I'm trying to do with the single digit body fat series, this is a huge theory of the single digit body fat theory, is that it's the idea of consuming as much protein as possible with as little of calories as possible. Now, that doesn't mean for every meal all the time, but you do want to utilize that strategy maybe once or twice a day. So if you can jack up the protein to be nuts, to be 60, 70, 80 grams of protein and under 10 grams of fat or something, that's a huge victory. Imagine you do that twice in one day, and then you have a regular meal that has, regular amounts of fat in it. You just got through the day with way under 50 grams of fat, and you met your protein requirements. Remember, we don't want to lower our fats for too long because it can negatively impact our hormones. So that is something to be aware of, is we don't want to do that for too long. But I'm a huge fan of dairy, so bring it on, throw it in there. Again, we do have you do have some probiotics that are in certain types of dairy. I think there's certain strains and certain things that we get from dairy that are maybe not always easy to get. I also like the diversity. I think that having some gut diversity, I think, is important. So having some dairy and having some meat and stuff like that, I think, can be really valuable. It looks like I hammered a lot of points. Obviously, the carnivore diet, I think it's the most well-suited for people to be able to lose and manage their weight, along with being able to manage a lot of disease, things such as diabetes and also autoimmune disorders. In terms of weight gain, people ask a lot about muscle mass, and I shot a video recently on the single digit body fat series about how to kind of hold on to muscle mass while doing a carnivore diet. But I'd also say, if you really want muscle, I would just change the carnivore diet to the meat and potatoes diet. Because potatoes are just awesome. Potatoes, I think they're a vegetable. Potatoes provide a lot of great things for us, but it's just such a great carbohydrate. It's very filling, and it blends together really, really nicely with some steak. So that would be my recommendation, rather than like trying to figure out like, how do I stay on this diet, but I want to gain muscle, or I don't want to lose any muscle. I would just say, hey, just throw in some potatoes here and there. You can have a potato every day or every other day, and that'd probably be plenty to sustain you. If you never tried a Japanese sweet potato, I always recommend that. Those things are absolutely incredible. They're amazing. So yeah, the carnivore diet is going to help you maintain your body weight very easily. We kind of talked about health-wise. People have questions all the time about cholesterol. We just hammered that. We hammered cholesterol so much on the Power Project. We've had many different guests on that came in and debated cholesterol. I guess some of the general information on cholesterol is that cholesterol by itself does not seem to be nearly as linked to catastrophic heart issues the way that we maybe initially anticipated. It is said that 50% of the people that die from a heart attack have high cholesterol, which means that 50% don't. So there doesn't seem to be a good consensus. There is some information on LDL, HDL. People go back and forth on that. But I don't think nature makes mistakes personally. And I think that, there's also not a great correlation between foods that have high cholesterol jacking up your body's own cholesterol, like when you get your blood work done. So dietary cholesterol and the cholesterol within your body are not the same thing. Like when you eat the cholesterol, your cholesterol doesn't necessarily go up. I'm sure that in some individuals, maybe that is the case, and maybe in some other individuals, maybe it's not. I think some of it has to do with like insulin sensitivity and all these things. Anyway, people bring it up all the time. And I think that people are usually trying to bring something up to like stop you, or to also pretend that they already know about that. Like, people don't like for you to know stuff that they don't know. So if I was like, oh, I'm on the carnivore diet, someone might say, oh, well, isn't all that meat bad for your cholesterol? It could be bad for my cholesterol, potentially. I don't know. Like, it could be something that maybe alters my cholesterol to make it look like I'm going to have bad health outcomes. But again, cholesterol is not as linked to heart disease the exact way that we thought originally. So therefore, there's not as great of a reason to be as concerned about only your cholesterol. And so I think that's some things to keep in mind. I don't think, like, if you're just some normie and you're going on a carnivore diet, I don't think there's any reason to go get your blood work done, like before and after and stuff like. I just don't think it's going to matter. All it's going to tell you is that, yes, maybe your cholesterol did go up because out of nowhere you started to eat completely differently than what you were eating before. There does seem to be some evidence of like your body kind of adjusting, and when you go keto and you start to eat more of these fats, that more of these fatty acids are just kind of circulating throughout your body. So of course there's going to be some changes in your blood work. I don't know if that information does you any good. I would just encourage blood work in general as just a general health practice. It's just smart to go and get some blood work done. And the reason why it's smart to get some blood work done is so that you can compare it later on to different blood work. However, I don't think doing a 6-week diet is an appropriate time to try to look at your blood work under a microscope, because 6 weeks is just not enough time to really tell much of anything. As an example, we know that a lot of people, when they do the carnivore diet, they might be 3 days, 5 days down the road, and now all of a sudden they have this crazy diarrhea. And they think that something's wrong. They think that, oh my God, something's happening. I've also heard people talk about like their heart just kind of almost kind of feeling like they have irregular heartbeat and things like that. And these things, so in terms of the heartbeat, a lot of times that is it's next to impossible, unless there's things that we don't know. It's next to impossible for all of a sudden for you to eat some meat and then all of a sudden have an issue with your heart. Like that makes no sense at all. It's just, at least with all the information I have and all the people I've had on the show, it's just not possible for you to eat meat and then there'd be an issue with your heart within 3 days or 5 days or 7 days or even 10 days. It just does not make any sense. I could say that if you were at some tipping point and you had crazy high blood pressure and all of a sudden out of nowhere your blood pressure went higher, that yes, maybe you could run into some sort of issue. So if you have previous medical issues, then that always needs to be of the utmost concern, especially something like high blood pressure, which is something that you don't want to mess around with.
For years on this podcast, we've been talking about the benefit of barefoot shoes. And these are the shoes I used to use back in like 2017, 2018. My old Metcons. They are flat, but they're not very wide and they're very stiff and they don't move. That's why we've been partnering with and we've been using Vivo barefoot shoes. These are the Modus Strength shoe, because not only are they wide, I have wide ass feet, and so do we here on the podcast, especially as our feet have gotten stronger, but they're flexible. So when you're doing certain movements, like let's say you're doing jumping or you're doing split squats or you're doing movements where your toes need to flex and move, your feet are able to do that and perform in this shoe, allowing them to get stronger over time. And obviously, they're flexible. So your foot's allowed to be a foot. And when you're doing all types of exercise, your feet will get stronger, improving your ability to move. Andrew, how can they get their hands on these?
Yes, head to vivobarefoot.com/powerproject and enter the code that you see on screen to save 20% off your entire order. Again, that's at vivobarefoot.com/powerproject. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
But the carnivore diet and its impacts on cholesterol. Dr. Sean Baker has talked about this quite a bit as well. We've had Stan Efferding talking about it quite a bit. And I'm not trying to dismiss that the carnivore diet could potentially have some sort of negative impact on some markers of your health. It probably can, because it is a little bit of an extreme. And when you go from one extreme, which is like eating the standard American diet, into eating the carnivore diet, there's probably going to be some negative side effects. But what I'm trying to make the point of is those negative side effects will probably be a positive in a little bit if you can just kind of hold on and hold on and do your best to continue the diet. Also, remember, there's no reason not to just to gently discontinue the diet and then try it again. So if you're not feeling good and your stomach is all crazy and you have diarrhea, eat some carbohydrates. Try to eat some fruit. Try to eat a little bit of vegetable. Try to eat a potato, and see if any of that makes any changes. And if it does, then that's great. And then see if you can kind of gradually go back into the carnivore diet. Excuse me. My understanding of what happens to your poop basically during this time period is that you have a huge shift in the liquids that are like in one area of your body versus the other. So as soon as you take those carbohydrates out and you're primarily only eating meat, your body tends to just have a big shift, I think, in your bile, I think it was, is what Dr. Baker was suggesting. That could be potentially happening. But look, anytime you have a new diet, I tell people this all the time, anytime you have a new diet, you're going to have new poop every single time. It's just simple math. So I don't think it's good, though, for people to, I have heard recommendations from some people that are like, oh, just kind of hang in there. And I would say don't hang in there. I would say just try to restart the diet. So again, like I said, have some vegetables, have some fruit, see if you can get it to dissipate. And if you can't get it to dissipate, then abandon the project for a little while and then maybe try to restart it some other time. But I would first off try some fruits and some vegetables. Remember, these things I'm not against fruits and vegetables. Not at all. And I'll explain to you guys in signing off here about the way that I eat. But again, just, if you're having problems and you're in the bathroom a lot, then, reintroduce some food, try some vegetables, try some fruits, and hopefully the issue goes away. Sometimes people will go the other route and they'll sometimes be constipated on the carnivore diet. Again, new diet, new poop. So anytime that you have a new plan, you're going to have different outcomes with your visits to the bathroom. I would say when it comes to if you get constipated, obviously if you end up with a couple days of constipation, that's probably something to have some concern over. But if you're just less frequent or it's more like clockwork, that's actually a good thing. So I think for myself personally, and for a lot of people that I know that I've helped over the years, when I communicate with people and I ask them, hey, do you go to the bathroom like similar time every day type thing? And they usually say that they do. And they usually say that like they normally don't, randomly have to go number 2, like in the middle of the day. They don't have to randomly do it at night. Like whatever their regular time is their regular time. And they usually just go like once or twice a day, and that's that. And to me, that's a good sign of someone that's healthy. I think if you're running to the bathroom quite a bit, there's a problem. I mean, there's no question. I don't even think that there's a problem. I know that there's a problem. That's not good. Not good to be running to the bathroom so often. So that's when you have to investigate the type of foods that you're eating and some of the other practices that you have. And once you kind of look into that, hopefully you'll find some of the answers you're looking for. Been answering, going through a lot of this kind of Q&A type stuff here with the carnivore diet. Make sure in the comments below that you throw some questions my way. And I'm going to give you guys a glance at the way that I eat. And as I'm doing that, Ryan, if there's any more questions that you have, we can finish with some of those, but let me get through this. So I started the single digit body fat series with my boy, Ryan Soper, a couple weeks back. And we've been talking about just how to get lean, how to get shredded. And I've been explaining a lot of the principles of my diet and a lot of the ideas that I'm implementing. currently, I do a 48-hour fast every single week. I devoted myself to that about 2 months ago because I wanted to get down under 200 pounds. This morning, I was 209, and I'm in the middle of a 24-hour dry fast. I will explain dry fasting in other videos coming up, but just the short of it is that I don't eat or drink anything. I don't eat or drink anything. I do have an electrolyte pouch right here that I'm like just eating it dry just to get a little electrolytes in there. The first 24 hours of my fast is a dry fast, and I think this week actually it might extend out to be 30 hours or a little bit longer. The dry fast, it does seem to have a crazy impact on weight loss, and I'm trying to determine what that weight loss is. Obviously, there's like glycogen, there's water, there's like all kinds of things you can lose when you're fasting. But so far, it's my understanding that a dry fast can work about 3 times better than a water fast. A water fast is more the traditional fast that you hear people drinking some bone broth or some coffee or some water. Again, I'm not doing any of that for the beginning portion of my fast. What I'm doing, 24-hour dry fast, and then I go into 24 hours of a water fast. I've been doing that every week. It's been helping me gradually lose weight. As I said this morning, 209 pounds. The lightest I've gotten down to so far is 205, which I will probably be a little bit lighter than that even later today. So I'm actually intentionally dehydrating myself. I'm not recommending or suggesting this to anybody else. This is just what I'm doing. I read a book called The Phoenix Protocol. The Phoenix Protocol talks about these very long fasts that last many days. But I kind of looked at that and I was like, I think this could be expedited a little bit if I train and I run and I do some other things. I think that I can get some really great benefit of dry fasting without overdoing it, without getting into a compromised position. So that's basically a portion of my week where I'm not eating. But what do I do when I start to eat again? So when I'm water fasting, I'll have things like bone broth. I will have fermented vegetables, things like pickles or kimchi. I've talked about this a bunch of different times. Even just some regular vegetables would be fine too, like cucumbers or peppers. It's just really there's not like an abundance of food anywhere. I don't have to eat these foods. They're not like necessarily, they're not necessarily like, I don't have to eat them, but they're just around. I have, what the hell do you call it? Sauerkraut. These are all things I buy in the refrigerated section of the grocery store. That's how you know that they are, they have live shit in them. So it's like probiotics, along with the vegetables are giving me some prebiotics as well. I mentioned bone broth. I will have coffee. I'll bulletproof my coffee. I'll also bulletproof my bone broth. And that's where you put fats into. So you put coconut oil and or MCT oil and grass-fed butter into coffee. I also will sometimes do that and put that into my bone broth. However, that is very easy to get carried away with too. One of the reasons why I do that is it can help a lot with hunger. It gives me something to do. I can watch TV with my wife or whatever. It gives me something to do, but it also, it's going to help you to produce ketones. And ketones are a huge part of this equation, huge part of this game when you are utilizing a carnivore style diet and when you're fasting and doing some of the various things that I'm doing. So that covers the stuff for the water fast. Now, when I actually am eating, what the hell do I eat? I eat Piedmontese beef, many different types. I have their filet, which has next to no fat. I have their bavette, 16 grams of fat, 100 grams of protein. I have, what are those called? I have their kebab meat, which is even leaner than the bavette. I will also eat 85-15 grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef from Piedmontese, 93.7 lean ground beef. Again, these are all from Piedmontese. Use the code Mark Bell at checkout to get like 25% off and free shipping. It's the best meat in the world. Their steaks are unmatched. They're tender. They're delicious. People are always talking about these other brands, these other companies. I am telling you guys, these other companies, they're just, it's not even remotely close. I've had these other companies send me meat before, and they're just nowhere near the quality of Piedmontese. I want to just shout it from the mountaintops because it's such a good brand. I actually went out there and visited their farm, and I'm not even really trying to sell you guys on anything. I just think it's a great product. I really actually enjoy it a ton. And hopefully you guys do too. I do realize it comes with a price tag, but they have great products. Other than that, I will also eat chicken thighs, chicken breast, wings. Now, I don't just like order buffalo wings from Buffalo Wild Wings, although if you did that, that wouldn't be a crime because Buffalo Wild Wings fries their wings in beef tallow. So there you go. Not Wingstop, but Buffalo Wild Wings. You might want to call them up, double, triple check, but last I heard, that's what they were doing over there. I don't know if they bread their wings. But anyway, I make my wings at home, and I cook them in the air fryer. I use Porking Good, pork panko. See, this is where cooking comes in handy because this is like, I eat this every week, and I absolutely love it. It's so good. I throw Porking Good, pork panko on the wings. I throw them in the Ninja Foodie, and they're in there for like 25, 30 minutes or so. Take them out, and then I dump them in a pot where I mix red hot sauce with a little bit of coconut oil and Primal Kitchen buffalo wing sauce, kind of all mixed in there together. And I push the wings around in there in this pot. I get them all, full of that that dressing or whatever the hell you want to call it. And then I eat them. Bon appetit. They're unbelievable. Absolutely amazing. Other things I'll eat, carnivore crisps. I love them. Huge fan. I eat the brisket. I eat the eye of round. Those are my two favorites. And the chicken skin. The chicken skin is just like a chunk of crispy fat, and it's just hard to explain, but it's just so good. And obviously drinking lots of water, taking in electrolytes. I got some supplements, creatine, obviously tons of steak shakes. I have at least 2 steak shakes nearly every single day. I have a total carnivore shake 1 or 2 times a day. Since it's my brand and my company, and just always utilizing it for something. Total carnivore hot chocolate's one of my favorite things. I just take our chocolate protein powder for the total carnivore and mix it with boiling hot water, and it instantly turns into amazingness. Other things, I'll throw some food like in the crock pot sometimes, like that pork butt I mentioned earlier. That's just ridiculously good. I like bone marrow. I like canned fish, tinned fish. I eat cod livers. I eat sardines. I eat oysters. Just basically any and all. I love all that stuff. And they're really filling. And what I'm finding is, even though I backed off a lot on some of the fats that I was eating with a bunch of the meals, I've actually found that having a lot of fat for some particular meals is just so satisfying and so filling that it's amazing. So if you're trying to really calm down a lot of those hunger signals, that's a good idea. Just blast yourself with something that just has, quite a bit of fat in it. It'll really, like, instead of cheating on the diet, like make an omelet. Instead of maybe your spouse or significant other, they eat a cookie or 2 or whatever, and they're kind of sitting there with something, and you're jealous. Pop up off the couch and go whip up 3 eggs with some avocado and bacon. And I mean, fuck, that's way better than what they ate. Like somebody eating a Chips Ahoy cookie. It's like, who cares about that? Or who cares about a Lay's potato chip? Yeah, it's crunchy, it's good, but is it anywhere near as good as like some good eggs and some avocado and some bacon? I don't think so. So I think that it pretty much wraps up how I eat. And again, in the comment section, please hit us up with more questions because we want to really make sure we nail this carnivore stuff this month. And we want to make sure that you guys, fully understand it. Ryan, you got any questions over there?
Yeah. So one of the things we were just talking about was the heart arrhythmias. And I did see something where Sean Baker mentioned that could be like an electrolyte imbalance. So just supplementing with electrolytes. But that just leads me to my next question is, what do you think are things that people need to supplement with for the carnivore diet? I've heard people talk vitamin C, and then I've heard people talking about bringing in like organs and stuff like that. So what do you kind of think about all that?
Yeah, I think it makes sense, especially the organs. I think the organs really make a lot of sense, and that's why I'm always going to push people towards the steak shake and the total carnivore, because those are fortified with liver, kidney, heart, spleen, and pancreas. It's already in there, and so if you're having a couple scoops of these things every single week, it starts to add up over a period of time. And maybe even in addition to that, getting some liver capsules or something like that might make sense, because liver is really it's an amazing multivitamin for the body. There's just so many different nutrients in there. The other thing too is the liver king kind of got crucified on some of this stuff, and maybe rightfully so. But he did have some good points about certain things. And I'm a firm believer in like equals like, even though some people don't like that method. But what I mean by that is that we help our muscle tissue by eating muscle tissue. So we go in the gym, we train our protein, we tear down our muscles, right? And then to replenish our muscles, we eat more muscles. And so I think this idea that your liver is going to help your liver and the kidney is going to help your kidneys and the heart is going to help your heart, I'm a huge believer in that. There's components of things that are in your heart, and there's components of things that are found in your liver that literally do help those particular areas. I believe there's like CoQ10 is something that comes from the heart, and then CoQ10 is prescribed by doctors a lot of times, even though it's just an over-the-counter supplement. They recommend it as being something that could potentially be like heart healthy. So I think that that's pretty interesting, and because of that, I think it's worthwhile to look into some organs. But do you actually need any supplementation on this diet? I don't really think that you do. My brother comes to mind. He doesn't really ever, he messes with supplements here and there, but it's rare. Dr. Sean Baker isn't really big on supplements. One thing I would say is like, it's hard to tell, because it's hard to tell like what ratios and what amounts are like the most important for particular outcomes. But to me, it seems like it would be a good idea to have fish in the diet. To me, it seems like it makes a lot of sense that if you're going to do the carnivore diet, like if the carnivore people are missing anything, it's the fact that maybe they're not getting enough nutrients from other animals. Just sinking all your energy into a cow, it's not a horrible thing. Like the cows have a lot of nutrients in them, and I'm sure that you could live a prosperous and great life that way. But I also think it would be great to pick up other nutrients from other things, sardines, oysters, things like that. But to answer the question super directly, I don't really think that you need any supplements, and at least so far from what I've seen, I don't think there's a reason. Vitamin C is actually an interesting one. The last I left off with my vitamin C research was that you needed more vitamin C the more carbohydrate that you ate. The more like highly processed bullshit diet that you're on, it seemed like the more vitamin C that you needed. Now, I don't know how much truth there is to that, but like, I don't ever like consciously consume vitamin C personally. And maybe that's something I should look into. I'm not sure. So for the most part, I don't think there's a lot of reasons to supplement on the carnivore diet. However, you might want to look at the carnivore diet as being similar to the vegan diet, where when someone's vegan, someone who's doing a vegan diet and who's being smart about it, they're going to supplement with something. They're going to try to supplement somewhere because they don't have the proper B vitamins and so on. And so I could see the argument being made, hey, if I'm going to do this carnivore diet, maybe I should look into other things to supplement my diet. But the cool thing about the carnivore diet is you don't need anything from the plant kingdom to kind of infiltrate your supplementation.
What about like athletic performance? People seem to be concerned about their like either building muscle or endurance, but then we see people like Sean Baker that's setting world records. And I know Eddie Hall's done a carnivore diet and he said he's added some strength while also losing weight. So do you think that those are legitimate concerns, or do you think you can still perform pretty well without any carbs or vegetables?
I think you can perform amazing without any carbohydrate. I think you really can. I just don't know if there's a reason to do it though, other than just to do it, and other than it being more recreational. You know, Eddie Hall's retired. Dr. Baker is recreational, even though he's formidable and he is doing some outstanding stuff. And I believe he's almost 60 years old. He's really doing a lot of great things. He's very explosive. He's doing some miraculous stuff on the Concept 2 rower. He's got some records there and stuff like that. My question would be like, yeah, like why? Like, can you do it? Yeah, I think you could. Could we take like Saquon Barkley and have him do carnivore next year, and he can have a great, another great season in the NFL? Yeah, you probably could. But is there a reason to? Like look at all these NFL players. A lot of these guys are playing really, really well. All these basketball players playing really, really well. Is there a reason to go in there and then make them like keto or make them carnivore? I don't know if anybody knows that answer really. I do know that there are people that perform really well with lower carbohydrate. But there's no one I can think of off the top of my head who's like a champion of like who's like just rocking it, like the best guy, hands down. I don't know of anybody who's done anything like that. The only thing I can think of is like LeBron James, I believe, did a ketogenic diet for like a period of time, but I don't know if he sustained it or did it for a while, but I do know that when he did it, it kind of it seemed like it revitalized his career in a way because he lost some weight and came back leaner. So I think it has a ton of application. I guess I would say this: if someone could do keto or carnivore and divorce themselves from having to eat that amount of carbohydrate, that would be very useful for a lot of reasons. So if they could train and do most of their stuff without the carbs, but then utilize the carbs kind of as needed, I think that would probably be the ultimate for sports performance. All right. Well, I think we hammered just about everything you can think of in terms of the carnivore diet. Thank you guys so much for following along, and I hope that you guys are watching the Single Digit Body Fat series. It's been great to communicate with you guys about these various diet plans, and it's been awesome to get the feedback. You guys have been real alive in the comment section, which is always very helpful. Questions or concerns, or even you hate that I said this or you hate that I said that, all of it, it's all welcome because it's all just a conversation, and I want to become better at delivering the best information that I possibly can, even though I already am the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.